Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the fourth episode of the story, where trained as a sage, the Kyuubi by his side, and more powerful than ever, Naruto seeks to be known to the world, either by respect or by fear. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel after watching the video. So, let us begin. The gates of Konoha, the doorway into the Hidden Leaf Village. Naruto was currently standing at said gate, awaiting for the departure to Kyumo. He was standing with two other jounin. These jounin were Asuma Sarutobi and Genma Shiranui. He was also with the Hokage, who was seated in a carriage. The group was just waiting on Kakashi, and everyone knew just how late he could be. After minutes of waiting, Kakashi finally walked down the road towards the gate out of Konoha. He waved at the group. "Sorry I'm late, I saw a fish in the river and I had to make sure it didn't drown," he said, then ended with his classic "I smile." The group's sweat dropped at Kakashi's antics, but then they were soon on the road towards Kyumo. "So Naruto, we've heard rumors, but just who are you?" It was Genma who spoke. It seemed when he spoke these words, the whole group started to pay extreme attention, even Kakashi, who poked his head over his book. Naruto sighed, and looked at his teammates. "You don't need to know of my life, but because we are together on a mission, I will tell you that I'm at least Chunin level." Genma narrowed his eyes at the boy's answer, but let it go. If he didn't want to tell, then it couldn't be forced. The Konoha group continued to walk down a path, while the Hokage was still seated in the carriage. Trees lined either side of the path as the team walked. After another few hours, the sun began to go down. "I think we should look for a place to set an arrow suddenly landed in front of Asuma. Asuma looked down at the arrow, and then around at his surroundings. Genma copied Asuma's actions, as did Kakashi. All three began to get into defensive position. Naruto put his hand on the hilt of his sword, then spoke. "There are 50+ enemies, each not even Chunin level, meaning they're bandits?" Genma spoke. "Hokage-sama," Asuma spoke then, "please, stay inside and let us handle this, okay?" The aged Hokage's muffled voice was barely heard while he was in the carriage. Naruto calmly turned to his left, where a single bandit came walking out of the trees. The others turned attention to the bandit as he walked closer. When he was about 5 meters away from the carriage, he stopped and looked at the shinobi. "Shinobi, please surrender," the bandit spoke. Naruto responded, "Either you're incredibly brave, or incredibly stupid." The last word came out as a growl that surprised both Naruto's teammates and the bandit. After Naruto's response, the bandit started laughing. He then spoke, "Ache. You know what I've learned, bandits with chakra are just as good as shinobi, and much better in large numbers. Attack!" The bandit started running through hand seals at a moderately slow pace. Naruto smirked, and before the bandit could finish his last seal, his head had been cut off. The bandit's headless corpse fell toward the ground. Naruto stood behind it, blood on his blade. "And it has begun," Naruto spoke, then blurred out of sight. Naruto moved to the left, then sliced at a bandit's midsection, then flipped backwards over another bandit's, coming down on top of him and slicing his head open. Then, he blurred out of sight, appearing behind yet another bandit, and slicing his head off clean. There were only about 20 bandits left, and the force was beginning to retreat. Naruto decided he should just end the useless charade. "Genma, Kakashi, Asuma, stand back," Naruto yelled. They each looked at Naruto for a moment, then jumped out of the way, all the time Naruto was preparing to end it. Naruto got into a stance, and looked at his opponents. Dance of the Wind. Naruto then blurred out of sight, reappearing a few meters behind a bandit. He sliced his sword and a blade of wind nearly invisible flew out, slicing the bandit in half. Naruto followed through with the swing, sending out another wind blade to a different bandit. Naruto kept disappearing and reappearing, sending out wind blades which cut each bandit in half. Then, Naruto jumped into the air, his sword held high. In a flurry of movement, Naruto swung his blade many times, all the while emitting wind blades, which went in all directions downward, cutting down the rest of the bandits and reshaping the ground. Naruto, while in mid-air, finished his final swing and dropped towards the ground. He landed elegantly into a roll, then put his weight on his sword, all the while looking at the carnage he created. Dead bodies were everywhere, and a light cloud of debris hung in the area. All this time, Naruto was smirking to himself. What the hell? Asuma yelled, his cigar had fallen out of his mouth. Uzumaki Naruto, he's really something, Genma spoke. Kakashi just smiled and reached into his pocket, pulling out his favorite orange book. Soon, Naruto walked out of the debris and came to the sight of his teammates standing with the Hokage, the carriage behind them. Enemies have been eliminated, Hokage-sama, Naruto spoke in a business-like tone. Good, have you suffered any injuries? The Hokage spoke. No, I am unharmed, Naruto responded. Good, then we can set up camp, the Hokage spoke, then proceeded to re-enter the carriage cart. No need, there is a village up ahead, Genma spoke, we can rest there for the night, though we must be discreet. I suggest a henge, Hokage-sama. Very well, the Hokage spoke, and got back into the carriage. The team continued on their path. Naruto walked up to Kakashi. A few people know me in Kyumo. Kakashi's eyes widened. What? How? Calm down, Hatake, Naruto spoke, it shouldn't compromise the mission, and with that, Naruto left and retook his position around the carriage. Kane sat under a tree in Team 7's normal training ground. Naruto had told him that any time he needed it, that he should feel free. The training ground had slashes on the ground and the posts were cut in various places. He was working on kenjutsu. Naruto had told him that learning kenjutsu, along with having a powerful taijutsu style, would make him a very difficult opponent to handle. Kane then heard footsteps to his left and saw the one and only Sasuke Uchiha walking up to him. Sakura was not too far behind. Naruto had told him about the Uchiha and the Haruno. Kane sighed and stood up, sword still in hand. Sasuke walked up to Kane. Fight me. Kane looked at the Uchiha, then glanced at the Haruno, and then he spoke, I can't. If word gets out I fought you, I'll be in a jail cell for the rest of my life. The people in this village already want me dead because of my part in your mission, and because you almost died because of it. Sasuke grit his teeth, then stepped right up to Kane's face. Fight me now. Sasuke then jumped back and began to run through hand seals. Kane's eyes widened as Sasuke released his jutsu. Fire style, fireball jutsu. A large fireball sped towards Kane. Kane though knew exactly what to do, and started running through hand seals. Water style, water wall. A wall of water surrounded Kane, and a hissing sound was the only evidence of the fireball hitting the wall of water. Steam was created and surrounded Kane, blocking his own vision. Sasuke stood back, ready for an attack, then he jumped up, just as two hands reached out of the ground where he was just standing. After the hands, Kane popped out of the ground, dirt on him. He looked at Sasuke who was a few meters away. That jutsu is useful, Kane thought, and then mentally thanked Naruto for teaching him it. Sasuke then smirked. Kane looked at him in confusion, but his confusion left as he figured out what the Uchiha was planning. Now, I'll show you how mighty the Uchiha really are. Sasuke exclaimed as he activated his Sharingan. Sasuke's pupil turned blood red, and the circle in the pupil turned a deeper shade of black. Also, two spinning tomos were now evident in the pupil of the Uchiha, signaling the second stage of his Sharingan. Sasuke then blurred out of sight, reappearing just to the right of Kane. Kane ducked as the Uchiha aimed a kick to his head. Sasuke followed through and used his other foot to kick outward towards Kane's chest. Kane jumped up and over Sasuke. Sasuke put his hands on the ground and went into a handstand. From there, he lifted upwards, hitting Kane in the stomach and sending him flying upwards. Arg! Kane huffed as the air left his lungs. He landed a few meters away from Sasuke in a heap. Now do you see the difference in our powers? Sasuke exclaimed. Kane got up, putting his weight on his sword, then smirked. Uchiha, do you know where Kekii Genkai originated? The Sage of Six Paths, Sasuke replied without missing a beat. Yes, and he was the one who fought and sealed the Jubi, the ten-tailed beast, into himself. Kane paused, the information sink into Sasuke. And the sage had two sons, the older one with the eyes of the sage, the younger with his body? Kane asked. Yeah, it said that through their distant relatives and bloodlines, the Byakugan and Sharingan were formed. Exactly, and you remember what happened to the Jubi, the Ten Tails? He was sealed into the sage, the Uchiha spoke, but why are we talking about this? It's no more than a bedtime story. Oh no, Uchiha, it's more than that. On my journey, I found out that the Kekii Genkai derive from demons, or Bijou rather. You see, when the blood of the sage was passed down through the sons, there was demonic blood. The sage had the Rinnegan, which is a base DNA for a Kekii Genkai. That is why the two Dojutsus you spoke of were able to form. The mixture of the Bijou's demonic taint and DNA of a pre-existing Kekii Genkai. I don't believe any of that, Sasuke replied, but did not miss Kane's smirk. Kekii Genkai derive from Bijou, and what do you think I am? Kane spoke. Sasuke's eyes widened, as did Sakura's. What do you mean? You can't be Dash, but I am Uchiha, and I will show you. My Kekii Genkai XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX henge to look like a normal shinobi, as was everyone else. They could be recognized as jounin, and if they were recognized, someone might realize that they were probably with somebody important. Naruto currently lay in his bed, Kakashi was in the other bed across the room. The Hokage was in the room next door, and Genma was currently guarding the entrance. Genma had decided to take first watch, Naruto would take second and Kakashi would take third. Asuma would take last watch. So at the moment, Naruto was just lying in his bed. He decided to take this time to visit the fox, Naruto's mindscape. So Kyuubi, is the Kekii Genkai ready? Not yet, foolish human. It should normally take hundreds of years to create a Kekii Genkai, but since I found base DNA of a Kekii Genkai, it will take less time, but still it will take time. Base DNA? Naruto asked, you mean my father or mother had a Kekii Genkai? No, the Kyuubi spoke, if it were one of your parents, you would unlock it naturally, but this DNA derives from thousands of years ago. Naruto's eyes widened, then spoke, which Kekii Genkai, human? Do not test me. I cannot tell you. The DNA is barely recognizable. It's hard enough just to extract the Kekii Genkai. I do not know at this point. Naruto said to himself, deep in thought, what about Kane's? Are you saying that Kane's Kekii Genkai came because his relative lived to a closer year to Kane's birth? No, the reason for his Kekii Genkai is his seal. His seal allowed for early leaking of his demon's chakra, while your seal locked all of it up, the Kyuubi spoke. So if your chakra had mixed with mine at an earlier age, would have had a greater chance of developing a Kekii Genkai? Indeed, the Kyuubi spoke. Naruto nodded, then addressed the Kyuubi, work well, I want the Kekii Genkai soon, and with that, Naruto began to fade out of sight in his mindscape. As he left his mindscape, he heard the words of the Kyuubi. Don't test me, human, I am far more powerful than you can imagine. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX supposedly activated his Kekii Genkai, but Sasuke could see no evidence of it. I'll tell you to spare you of your curiosity. My Kekii Genkai, which derives from Baibiju, allows me a stronger elemental manipulation with each of the elements. Kane spoke. Sasuke's eyes widened as he began to catch on, meaning Kane cut him off, meaning that all my elemental jutsus are that much stronger with no added effort. Sasuke couldn't believe what he was hearing. He didn't believe something like that existed. I'm not done yet, Uchiha. My Kekkei Genkai also grants me the exclusive ability of ice manipulation, if possible. Sasuke's eyes widened even more. You mean like that girl I fought? Haku's a boy, you idiot. Kane spoke, then tightened the grip on his sword. Prepare to defend yourself, Uchiha. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX filled the room. Yes, they are here to discuss a treaty, a deep resounding voice spoke. What's with this sudden treaty? The blonde-haired woman asked. The Hokage looked Yujito in the eye, then spoke. Do you remember of the event in IWA? Yes, because of my bijou I was able to unlock the suppressed memories. I am surprised you remember, Hokage-sama. Don't judge me lightly, Yujito. I am quite strong. The jutsu was created to destroy the memories of the weak, and to suppress the memories of the strong. Few people in the world remember that event. Killer Bee is one of them. I don't know of Konoha and if anyone remembers there, but I would rather avoid a disaster like that. I understand, Hokage-sama. Good. The delegates should be here in around a day's time. Be prepared for who they send. It will be a memorable day. Hi, Hokage-sama. Sasuke flew back from a punch from Kane's fist, which was embedded in a larger fist of ice. Then, Kane raised his hand and lowered it, and icicles rained from above. Sasuke dodged each icicle, his Sharingan the only reason why he could accomplish such a feat. Kane then swung his blade and a blade of wind flew out and sped towards Sasuke. Sasuke flipped to the left to dodge the wind blade, then he began hand seals for his own jutsu. Fire style, Fire Dragon Jutsu. A fire dragon formed behind Sasuke and took a great size, then sped towards Kane. All the while, Kane was forming hand seals for his own jutsu. Wind style, Wind Dragon Jutsu. A wind dragon began to form behind Kane, and took full size. It was bigger than Sasuke's. Sasuke smirked. He made a wind dragon, meaning it will be defeated by my elemental fire dragon. Sasuke could only watch in horror as the wind dragon engulfed the fire dragon and continued on its track towards Sasuke. Just a moment before the wind-enhanced fire dragon hit Sasuke, it stopped in mid-air. Sasuke's eyes widened as he stood in place, staring at the immobile fire dragon. Suddenly, the fire dragon began to fade away. The red fire started turning into a blue haze. Soon, the whole figure of the dragon was a blue haze, then the haze made its way towards Kane. Kane seemed to absorb the haze as it entered his body through his pores. Sasuke's eyes were still wide, and he was speechless. How is that possible? Sasuke spoke through quick breaths. Simple, Kane spoke. I turned my elemental chakra back into its base form, then reabsorbed it. How thought, it shouldn't be possible. Sasuke was cut off by Kane. You people all say it shouldn't be possible. What do you know is possible and isn't? Kane spoke. Sasuke recomposed himself, then looked at Kane. Where'd you learn that? Naruto taught it to me. Kane spoke. Naruto, Sasuke thought, does everyone he teach become this strong? You see Naruto as a rival, do you not? A stepping stone till you reach Itachi, am I right? Kane spoke while staring straight at the Uchiha. The Uchiha looked at Kane, a new emotion was visible in his eyes. You won't be able to defeat Naruto for a long time, Kane spoke, either get it together, or find a more realistic stepping stone. Sasuke was angry on the inside, but in some part of him, some part hidden deep inside him, he knew Kane was right. Naruto and the group continued their walk towards Kyumo. So, what'll we be doing while the Hokage is in his meeting? Naruto asked. The Hokage will have one of his guards with him in the meeting. The rest of us will wait in the Raikage's tower. Genma answered. Naruto nodded, but Genma quickly spoke again, you're going to be the one to guard him during the meeting. Naruto's eyes widened, and he quickly addressed Genma, me? Why would the Hokage choose dash? The Hokage gave explicit orders that you would be the one to guard him. It has to do with showing our strength, Asuma cut in. Showing our strength is different from being stupid. I mean, I've still got a long way to go and to protect the life of Aji, I mean Hokage-sama maybe Bayo dash, Naruto, calm down, it was Kakashi who spoke, you'll do fine. Do you remember what you told me in Wave? Naruto stopped walking and stood still for a moment, thinking back to Wave. Flashback, Naruto was at the dinner table, Kakashi was seating with him. Tsunami was making dinner for Team 7. Tazuna was upstairs and waiting to come down. Naruto while sitting at the table addressed Kakashi. Hatake, do you believe I have changed? Naruto asked. Kakashi poked his eyes over the cover of his book and spoke, you've changed quite a bit, don't worry Hatake. Naruto paused then continued, what you saw was my mask. Kakashi looked at Naruto, then nodded in understanding. Then, he spoke, I would have thought you were far too young to have a mix. It took my father's death for me to crescent a mask. And it could take the Kyuubi for me to crescent one also, Hatake, Naruto responded, a little big agitated. Kakashi nodded, then apologized, sorry Naruto, I didn't mean it like that, I may have changed a lot, but remember, I'm still me. Flashback end, yeah, Naruto spoke, I remember that. And with that, the gates of Kyuumo came into sight. Naruto would not fail to protect the Hokage, even if it cost him his life. Ah, we've been expecting you, the gate guard spoke. The group that included Naruto, Genma, Kakashi, Asuma, and the Hokage had finally reached Kyuumo. Names, the Chunin gate guard spoke. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Asuma Sarutobi, Kakashi Hatake, Genma Shiranui, and Uzumaki Naruto. Good, now enjoy your stay. Hokage Dano, the Raikage asked for your presence at the Raikage Tower within the hour you arrived in Kyuumo. I will see him soon then, the Hokage replied and the carriage was let into the village. Kane was walking through the village. He was looking for a man, a jounin, named Hay-8. Naruto had told him that he was one of the only Kenjutsu masters in the village, and that while he was gone he should look to Hay-8 for some practice. So currently, Kane was looking for Gecko Hay-8, without much luck. The group had settled into a high quality inn provided by the Raikage. They had been given 3 rooms, meaning the Hokage got his own, and 2 people shared each of the other rooms. The Hokage had dressed in his Hokage garments and was at the door of the inn. Naruto stood with him. The whole group soon assembled and they were off to the Raikage's tower. Naruto, are you nervous? The Hokage asked. Not at all, Hokage-sama. My job is to protect you, and I will do exactly that. Naruto responded with a face of stone. The Hokage nodded as they approached the Raikage Tower. At the doors of the Raikage Tower, the Raikage stood proudly. Welcome, Hokage Dano, to my village, the Raikage spoke. I am glad to be here, the Hokage responded. This will truly be a moment to remember, the Raikage nodded while smiling, then took notice of Naruto. He used a moment to examine the young boy, then he spoke, well, let us get this underway. Please Konoha group, follow me. The Raikage then turned and walked into the Raikage Tower. The doors were opened by 2 people on duty. As Naruto took a step into the Raikage Tower, he noted how large the lobby was. The floor was porcelain, as were the walls and the ceiling. A red carpet was stretched between the front door and a space which contained stairs at the other side of the room. 3 chandeliers were hung forming a triangle in the room. The room was nicely illuminated. At each corner was a reception desk, though today it was empty, probably because of the treaty meeting. Naruto though thought something was up, why would they hold a meeting in the Raikage Tower? That gives the enemy a general idea of the layout of the main stronghold of the village. Naruto though did not voice any of these thoughts as he continued to walk on his way. As they walked up curved stairs, they came upon a hallway. They walked down the hallway until they came to a door. The Hokage opened the door and addressed the group. "This is a lounge, you may wait here if you decide to do so." Genma nodded and gestured his teammates into the room. Naruto of course, stayed with the Hokage. The Hokage's eyes widened, but he quickly composed himself. "They're sending a genin in with their Hokage?" Naruto nodded at his teammates then turned to the Hokage. The Hokage was standing beside him, and he gestured for them to follow him. The group was now down to Naruto, the Hokage and the Hokage. After going up 3 more floors, they finally came upon a single large door. "After you," the Hokage spoke, as he opened the door for the Hokage to walk in. Naruto followed after the Hokage and walked in after him. The Hokage walked in last. Naruto stepped out from behind the Hokage to take in the whole room. Before he could get a chance to do that though, a yell filled the room. "You!" Naruto turned to where the sound came from and saw a blonde woman. She was wearing a black sleeveless top that covered half her upper body, leaving her stomach exposed. There was a purple stripe going across the front diagonally. She also wore tight black shorts which stopped right below her thighs. Bandages were wrapped from under her shorts and traveled to right above her knee. Overall, she was very attractive. Naruto took her appearance in, and realized her immediately. He then smirked, "So you remember me?" Kane had been wandering around Konoha for the better part of the hour, and he had finally found Gecko Hayate in a training field. He was in the middle of performing a dance with his sword. "Who might you be?" Hayate asked. "My name is Kane," Kane spoke. "And your last name?" Hayate spoke. "I don't have a last name," Kane spoke. "I understand. Do you need anything from me?" Hayate asked, coughing all through his statement. "Well, a friend told me I should come to you if I wanted a good kenjutsu spar," Kane spoke. "Who might this have been?" "Uzumaki Naruto," Kane replied. "Uzumaki Naruto Konoha's weapon," Hayate thought. "Okay then." Hayate spoke as he brought his sword and got into a stance. "Whenever you're ready." Kane unsheathed his sword from his back and held it in his hand beside him. "Let's go wild." Where are you here? The woman yelled. Calm down, the Hokage spoke calmly. Yujito seemed to calm down after a moment, though it was obvious she was repressing anger. The Hokage looked at Naruto. "You two are acquainted?" he asked. "Indeed. We have met in the past," Naruto replied. The Hokage nodded, then went to sit in his large chair behind his desk. There was an equally large chair on the other side of the table, which the Hokage gestured the Hokage to sit in. The Hokage then turned to Naruto. "You two may sit over there," he spoke then gestured to a leather couch at a corner of the room. "Hi, Hokage-sama," Yujito spoke quickly then proceeded to walk towards the seat. Naruto looked at the Hokage, and after seeing him nod, he began to make his way to the leather couch. He sat beside Yujito, who was looking forward, trying to ignore Naruto. "Let us begin the talk of this treaty," Hokage spoke to the Hokage. "Yes, we shall begin. It is truly a remarkable day in history, Hokage Dano," the Hokage responded. "I couldn't agree more," said the Hokage. Naruto was not listening attentively to the conversation that started between the Hokage and the Hokage. Naruto could do 2 things at once though, so he turned to look at Yujito. "Listen, I could care less about what happened before," Naruto whispered to Yujito. Yujito turned to Naruto, anger on her face. She whispered harshly, "You seduced me, I flirted with you to get a reaction, then stole a kiss, all the while under a henge. And it was a shadow clone, not me," Naruto stated. Yujito grit her teeth. "I hate you." "Hate is powerful, Yujito. My teammate hates his older brother and is out for revenge. His whole life is built around training to kill him. Is that how much you hate me, Yujito? Yujito grit her teeth even harder and pondered on what Naruto had just said, then she glared at him. Why did you do that to me? Training, Naruto replied simply. Yujito nodded, then turned away from Naruto. Naruto ended with a few words, you don't have to forgive me, in fact I don't want you to. But remember me, and the pain you felt. Use your enemies as an anchor to become stronger, not through revenge, but through resolve. Yujito looked back at Naruto one last time, then turned back to the two Kages as they discussed a possible treaty between their respective villages. Kane held his blade to the right to block a strike from Hay-8, then pushed Hay-8 back. Hay-8 jumped backwards, landed, then blurred out of sight. Kane jumped into the air to avoid a slash from Hay-8 to his midsection. He then angled himself to the ground and sped towards Hay-8, sword in hand. As he neared Hay-8, he swung his blade, aiming for Hay-8's head. In a blur of movement, Hay-8 ducked under the swing, and Kane began to sail over him. Hay-8 then brought up his sword to the exposed stomach of Kane, and made a cut on his stomach. Kane continued to sail over and righted himself in mid-air to land on his 2 feet. He looked down to his stomach and the cut that went vertically across it. That's another death, Hay-8 spoke. Kane grit his teeth. He had numerous cuts like the one on his stomach all over his body. The cuts were shallow, but they were still reminders of how many times he could have died. Kane put his weight on the sword as it was in the ground. He looked straight at Hay-8, then stood up. He tightened his grip on the sword, and ran towards Hay-8. Gecko waited for Kane to reach him. Kane attempted a slice at his midsection. Hay-8 jumped up over the swing, then landed on the blade, forcing it downward. The blade impacted the ground and was stuck between the ground and Hay-8's feet. Kane's hand was still on the blade. At this moment, Hay-8 thrust his sword forward towards Kane's neck. Kane's eyes widened as he saw the incoming blade. He bent backwards and just by a hair dodged the blade. He then let go of the sword and put both arms behind him and onto the ground. He used his palms to push off the ground and delivered a kick to Hay-8's face. Hay-8 flew backwards from the kick but righted himself in mid-air to land on his feet. Kane quickly reached for his sword and held it at his side, tightening his grip on it once again. You've got quick reflexes, Hay-8 spoke, you could grow up to be quite an excellent swordsman. Kane nodded, satisfied with Hay-8's answer, so then, can you train me? Yes, when I'm not on missions I can train you, thank you, Hay-8-san, sure. Our first training session will be in 2 days. Meet me at 8 o'clock at this training ground, got it, Kane responded, then sheathed his blade, thank you, Hay-8-san, he said as he walked away from the Jounin. Hay-8 nodded and watched as Kane left the training grounds. The next generation has a lot of promise, don't they? Hay-8 said to himself as he picked up his sword, and decided to call it a night. A few hours passed as Naruto sat with Yujito in the Raikage's office. The two Kages continued their talk about the details of the treaty, and decided to meet again tomorrow at 11 o'clock to discuss the finite terms of the treaty. They were just about to close, when someone burst into the office. Raikage-sama. A lady with glasses and black hair spoke, Team Samui has returned, with 2 members critically injured. The Raikage's eyes widened as he got up from his chair. Where are they? They have been taken to the hospital, the woman said. The Raikage nodded and looked at the Hokage. Sorry I can't escort you out, Hokage Dano. It seems I have matters to attend to. The Hokage nodded in understanding and stood also. Yujito and Naruto also stood. I will have someone escort you back to the inn, the Raikage spoke, until tomorrow, Hokage Dano, and with that, the Raikage left the room, Yujito following close behind. It seems it's time to go, Hokage-sama, Naruto spoke. The Hokage nodded in agreement and the two left the office. the woman that had burst in escorted them to the lounge, where they met up with the rest of the Konoha shinobi. What happened? I could hear some commotion, Asuma spoke. Not much, just a team coming back heavily injured, the Hokage spoke. Asuma nodded in understanding then stood up. I guess we should be heading back to the inn then? Asuma asked. The Hokage nodded and the rest of the group stood up. They all filed out of the room, eager to get back to the inn and get some rest. Sasuke sat in the sacred meeting room of the Uchiha. It was square-shaped on the inside, made entirely of wood. There were floor mats laid out in rooms, and a large floor mat was at the front. That floor mat was where his father would sit. Sasuke looked around the meeting room, then walked towards his father's mat. He looked at it for a moment, then bent down and lifted it up. Underneath was a secret door. Itachi had told him briefly about it. Flashback, it was hell. The whole clan had been massacred and Sasuke had returned to the site of his parents, dead in the middle of the room, Itachi hovering over them. There had been a conflict, resulting in Sasuke being hit to the ground. Then, Itachi activated his genjutsu, the Tsukuyomi. Sasuke had just returned from the world of Tsukuyomi. He was mentally scarred, and was on his knees, clutching his head. He couldn't hold on to consciousness much longer. The Manjikyu Sharingan. The secret to it is hidden underneath your father's mat. Read it and use it as an anchor. You hate me, don't you, Sasuke? Itachi spoke. Sasuke could do nothing, as he fell onto the ground, hands still clutching his head. Become strong. Perhaps one day you'll be able to defeat me, Sasuke, Itachi spoke. Those were the last words Sasuke heard as he fell to the ground, letting blissful sleep take him. Flashback end. Naruto was walking around Kyumo, looking for a ramen stand. Asuma was with the Hokage, as was Genma. Kakashi was someplace but Genma knew where he was. The Hokage had told Naruto that he could roam around and explore the city, but he also said to stay out of trouble. So currently, Naruto was just looking for a ramen stand, but he had to bump into someone. Ouch, a female voice spoke as Naruto bumped into her. Strangely though, the part Naruto bumped into felt very soft. Naruto realized where he had just been and looked at the woman. She was slightly taller than Naruto. She wore a gray shirt and a black skirt. She also wore gray armor on the front of her shirt and on the sides of her skirt. Sorry about that, Naruto spoke. The woman looked at Naruto, then spoke, no problem. You're a Konoha ninja, indeed, Naruto replied. What are you doing here? She spoke again. Diplomatic issues concerning our two villages' relations, Naruto spoke in a business tone. I see, well, welcome to the village then, she spoke. I didn't catch your name, that's because I never told you, Naruto spoke, and with that he walked away from the woman, back into the crowd. The woman watched the boy walk away. He's interesting, she thought, then she continued on her way. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Mr. 9, a voice rapped each word. He is coming this way. Are you ready for a potential battle? The first voice spoke again. Nobody can beat B, not Mr. 9, ain't nobody, Tebeo, the voice rapped once again. Be wary. He is stronger than the Nibi. The man that was rapping nodded his head, then stood up. Time to face Mr. 9. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX There was mist lining the upper areas where the tops of the mountains were present, but there was an elevated plateau in which Naruto now walked on. He came across the site of a traditional-style house. Naruto sunshined closer to the house. He was now standing about 20 meters away from the house. Naruto then smirked. "I've been looking for you, B, what do you want, Mr. 9, a voice rapped. It came from every direction. Two things. I want you to answer one question, and I also want to fight, Naruto spoke. Why fight Mr. 9? Be rapped once again. Because, I've heard rumor of your full control over your demon. I want to see how far the gap is between you and I, Naruto spoke. You needed a question too, Tebeo, Mr. 9. Be rapped. Yes, Naruto spoke, I've been having dreams lately, why? Mr. 9. I can't help you with that. Tebeo. Naruto shook his head, then spoke, have you unlocked any repressed memories lately? Naruto asked. B stopped in his tracks. All was quiet, then Naruto turned around. The figure of Killer Bee was now visible on the plateau. He wore black baggy pants and an armored top which on his left side stopped just below the shoulder, and from there it had a strap going across his upper chest to his right shoulder. He also wore a white scarf, and red bandages on his ankles going up his calf and on his hands. He had a total of 8 swords all sheathed in various places. How would you know, Mr. 9? Be rapped. The way those dreams are, they're different. Something is up. Naruto spoke. Killer Bee looked at Naruto, if you can defeat me, Tebeo, I will tell you what you need to know. Naruto smirked, then reached for the handle of his blade. Sakura was walking by on the street. She had lots of things on her mind. Mainly, it was Naruto she had on her mind. Naruto was an enigma. She really didn't know what type of person he truly was. It was like he could change his personality at a moment's notice. Something brought Sakura out of her stupor. Kane, Sakura spoke calmly. Kane, who was sitting in Ichiraku's turn to see Sakura standing a few feet in front of the ramen stand. Sakura, do you need something? Kane asked. There was a general kindness in his voice that Sakura liked. Kane had all the reason in the world to hate her, but he still somewhat showed he cared. Sakura walked forward and sat inside the ramen stand, on a stool. What can I getcha for? Tucci asked. Diet ramen, Sakura spoke. Ayam was the one that answered from the kitchen, coming right up. Sakura turned her head to look at Kane. She took in Kane's face. His jaw was nicely protruded and he didn't have much baby fat on his face. Currently, he wore a tight white t-shirt and a black trench coat with a hood. Under his shirt, chain mail could be seen. He also wore black cargo pants, and he had a katana on his back going vertically. What's up, Sakura? Kane asked. Sakura sighed as she looked at Kane. It's about Naruto. Kane sighed at this, then looked her straight in the eye. What about Naruto? I just wanted to know. Sakura paused, trying to think of what she was trying to get across. What makes Naruto Naruto? Kane looked at Sakura, then spoke. I haven't known Naruto for too long, but from what I've seen of him, I can tell you what he's like. Naruto is XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX were Naruto thoughts as he dodged strike after strike from the blades of Killer Bee. When Naruto saw the blades on Bee's back, he had thought of them as ammunition. He would have thought that Bee's fighting style was centered around the use and discussion of the blades, meaning he would throw them and use them in different ways to overwhelm the opponent with constant threats. Well, Naruto was right for the last part. Killer Bee's style did have multiple threats, and those were his blades. Killer Bee had all 8 of his blades placed in positions around his body. He held one in between his right forearm and his right bicep, one between right shoulder and his head, one in his left armpit, one between his left forearm and his bicep, one between his thigh, one held underneath the knee, and one in his mouth. The way Killer Bee moved caused the blades to aim at various parts of Naruto's body at the same time. Also, Killer Bee was very fast. Naruto ducked, then moved his head to the right, avoiding another blade. He then blurred behind Bee, who continued the assault as if Naruto had never moved. Naruto attempted to block as many strikes as possible, but there was just so little time between a possible counter for Naruto and another one of B's strikes. "He's different," Kane spoke. "How so?" asked Sakura. "He has no love for this village." Naruto dodged another one of B's strikes, then blurred and reappeared a few meters away from B. They paused and stood still, then in a blur of movement, they both disappeared. Sounds of metal clashing metal filled the area. "Why is that?" asked Sakura. "Because, we grew up the exact same way." "You grew up the same?" "Yes. We grew up in a world which despised us for something we could not decide on." Naruto broke through Killer B's guards and was able to nick him on his shoulder before Killer B blurred behind Naruto, continuing his assault. "So Naruto despises this village?" "Indeed," Kane answered. Naruto was breaking through Killer B's guard more often. Though it seemed for every cut Naruto made, Killer B made 8. "So then why does he do it?" asked Sakura. "Do what?" "Fight for this village." Naruto jumped to dodge another strike, then struck out with his foot in midair. Killer B blurred behind Naruto, blades poised, and he continued his assault. "I don't know the answer to that." Kane spoke. Naruto broke through B's guard and attempted to punch him in the stomach. B blurred once again. 8 new cuts were now visible on Naruto. "But if there is anything you should know about Naruto," Sakura's head went up. She was paying full attention. "It is that Naruto has inherited the will of fire." Sakura nodded in understanding. "To still have a will like Naruto's after being treated the way he has. He doesn't show it though." Sakura spoke. Naruto swung his blade outward, deflecting a strike from B. He then blurred under B, preparing for his taijutsu combo. He kicked his foot upward while under B and attempted to hit him in his chin. B blurred out of sight right before the kick could connect. B came into sight a few meters away from Naruto. "You have quick reflexes," Naruto spoke while returning to his feet. "Tebeo." B responded, "You are just too slow, Tebeo." Naruto tightened the grip on his blade, then blurred out of sight once again. Naruto shows it in a way that portrays himself as cold-hearted. Kane spoke. "How so?" Sakura asked. "If he has the will to protect someone, as he had the will to defeat me in combat, Naruto will become a near unbeatable adversary," Kane spoke. "But then why does he act so cruel?" "That is because you simply aren't on his list yet." Naruto blurred away from B, appearing a few meters behind him. He swung his sword at B. Kenjutsu, Chakra Blade. A blade of blue chakra was emitted from the blade, and it traveled in a crescent towards B. Killer B blurred out of sight and reappeared right in front of Naruto. Naruto bent backwards to avoid a thrust from 2 blades, then flipped to avoid 3 others. "It's time for my ace." "His list?" Sakura asked. "He would protect the Hokage, Jiraiya the Sannin, Jin, and others. Those are his precious people on his list. And how would I get on?" "He will put you on it, even if he doesn't realize it." B appeared in front of Naruto, and thrust a blade forward. The blade was going straight for Naruto's chest, yet Naruto did not move. His eyes were closed. As the blade made contact, it shattered. Naruto's eyes sprang open, revealing a yellow pupil and black rectangular iris. Also, he had orange eyeshadow. B's eyes widened as he immediately jumped backwards. As soon as B lifted off the ground, Naruto blurred out of sight. "He has the will to protect everyone, but he just has to face his past to truly bring it out," Kane spoke. "So, Naruto is really a nice guy then?" Sakura asked. "Naruto is." Clash. All was quiet, but the scene was one to remember. Naruto was in front of B. His sword was being held against the ground by B's left foot. One of B's blades was poised right by Naruto's throat. But that wasn't all. A shadow clone behind B held his sword in his right hand beside him. A blade was also poised against the neck of the shadow clone. Naruto's eyes widened as he took in the sight. One of a kind, Kane said, smirking. Naruto stared in awe at the scene. Not only had he been able to stop Naruto's blade and put his own blade against Naruto's throat, but he had also been able to put one of his blades against Naruto's shadow clone's throat, all the while retreating. Killer Bee slowly lifted his foot off of Naruto's blade. He then began to sheath all of his own blades. One was shattered, so he unfortunately only had 7. Naruto stared at Bee. He truly could not believe what had happened. Bee countered his ace. After Bee sheathed all his blades, he turned away from Naruto, then spoke, "Yujito, you can come out now." Naruto looked at where Bee was staring and watched as the woman from the meeting of the Hokage and Raikage walked into view. "Were you watching the awesomeness?" "Nibi." Bee rapped. Yujito snarled at Bee in anger. "I thought I told you not to call me that," she spoke, a tick mark above her forehead. "It's the perfect name for Mrs. 2, Tebeo." Bee responded. "Yujito," Naruto spoke. Yujito and Bee turned their attention to Naruto. "I'm sure you know why I was fighting Bee just then," Naruto asked. "Yes. I'm sure you knew I was tailing you all along," Yujito responded. "Indeed," Naruto spoke. "But what was that move that you used to destroy Bee's blade?" "I saw no signs of a release of chakra," Naruto smirked. "A skill that I learned." Yujito narrowed her eyes, but nodded. Then, Bee spoke. "Tebeo, you want to know about the memories I will show?" Bee rapped. Naruto nodded, then walked towards Bee. "Follow me, Tebeo." Bee spoke, as he turned and blurred out of sight. Naruto did the same, as did Yujito. There was no trace of them afterwards. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX spoke. Kane nodded, then stood from his seat. Your ramen is getting cold, by the way. I got to go. See ya. Kane said this and blurred out of sight, wind rising around the area he once occupied. Kane, Sakura thought, a slight blush evident on her face. He's also interesting. So, this is your house? Naruto asked. This is my home, Tebeo. B responded. I see. So, how are we going to do this? Naruto asked. Simple. We establish a link between our demons, allowing me to venture into your mind, B spoke. Naruto's eyes widened. Is that possible? Of course it is. Yujito was the one that spoke, sounding slightly annoyed. Naruto looked at Yujito for a moment, then looked back at B. Whenever you're ready. 2 years ago. So, exactly why are we heading to IWA? Naruto asked. Simple. Your training is complete. IWA is the last stop before we head back to Konoha. Jiraiya replied. Let me restate the question, why are we going to IWA? Naruto asked, becoming slightly annoyed. For certain reasons you will be treated as if you are the devil in IWA. Be wary. This is part of your training. Also, my spy network has been going crazy in IWA and in some regions of Kumo. I need to check it out. Jiraiya answered. Right. Okay then, let's head to IWA. Naruto and Jiraiya had settled at an average inn in IWA. They had both entered under an advanced genjutsu, which Naruto had taken 20 minutes to properly create and execute. Jiraiya had gone to do some recon and find out about his mysterious disappearance of spies in the village. Naruto was left alone in the inn. Jiraiya had told Naruto to walk around later, but not under a henge. He had said that he may be attacked because of just who he looked like, though Jiraiya did not say who. So right now, Naruto was walking through the streets of IWA. The stares of the people around him were not missed by Naruto. Then, Naruto felt the cold edge of a kunai on his throat. What is your name? A voice asked. Naruto did not move, but he smirked. It's not nice to push a kunai against someone's throat. The IWA ninja gritted his teeth. Are you his son? Naruto responded calmly. Whose son? The kunai pushed harder against Naruto's throat. Blood trickled down the blade. The yellow flash, the ninja spoke. Naruto's eyes widened, and then he smirked. So, I look like him, eh? I wonder if I'm as fast. Naruto then disappeared before everyone's eyes. The IWA ninja, and the numerous civilians watching had no idea where he went. He literally just disappeared. Where'd he go? Yelled the ninja. The crowd broke out into murmurs as they began talking about a small yondaime in their village. They had heard about the things that the Yellow Flash had done in the war during IWA, and needless to say, they were frightened. Damn, the ninja yelled, then he leapt onto a building. He jumped away in the direction of the Tsuchikage Tower. Naruto was in a tree in a training field. He needed a place to relax. After the stunt he pulled, his identity and existence had been exposed. He would have to lay low for a while. His train of thought was lost though as 3 genin walked into the training field. Their Jounin sensei accompanied them. Word is spreading that the Yondaime son has returned to IWA, the female genin spoke. The Jounin sensei turned her attention to her student. And where did you hear this? She asked. I was at the Tsuchikage Tower, and Kyo came in. He said that he had confronted a Yellow Flash look-alike, the genin responded. He was probably just seeing things, one of the male genin spoke. How would you know, Sanako? It's not like you notice things very well either, the female spoke. Oh yeah. Nothing slips by me, Ray, Sanako responded. You sure about that? 'Cause, I think Ray was cut off as their Jounin sensei spoke. Quiet, both of you. I sense, someone. Ray and Sanako both looked at their Jounin sensei, then they looked at the third member of their team. He was still. He just stood there, his eyes were closed. Then in a lightning-fast movement, he whipped out a kunai and flung it towards a tree. Be careful where you throw that, a voice casued all 3 genin to turn around. Behind them was a boy. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. He also had whisker marks on his cheeks. He wore a black t-shirt with a red dragon pattern at the back. He had chains wrapped around his right hand, and he wore black shorts. He also had a sword on his back. At the girl's sight of the boy, she blushed, but composed herself and spoke, Who are you? Though she spoke in a tone as if she already had an idea of the answer. I'm not important. It seems you're Jounin sensei, and that boy are sensory types, am I right? Naruto asked. The Jounin sensei's eyes narrowed as she looked at the boy, and just who are you? She asked. I'm the one that your friend Kyo reported on, Naruto responded. Rei's and Sanako's eyes went wide. What are you doing here? The Jounin sensei asked. I was lying in a tree, then someone flung a kunai. Naruto spoke, all the while keeping a serious face. That would be me, a voice spoke. Naruto smirked, then spoke also, and who are you? Zensuke, he spoke, then smirked, you seem to be a worthy adversary, I'd like to knock you off your podium. Naruto took in Zensuke. He wore a tight black sleeveless shirt and black cargo pants. His hair was long and spiky, it reached his shoulders. His hair was dark brown and his face had little baby fat, making him look mature for his age. He wore his headband in a way which covered his right eye. His left eye was golden. He also had a long sword on his back. It was definitely high quality. What's under that band? Naruto asked. Prove yourself, and perhaps you will see, Zensuke replied. Naruto smirked, then put his hand on his sword. Zensuke pulled a scroll out from his pocket, nicked his finger, and rubbed it on the scroll. A sword popped out in a plume of smoke. Let's go, XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX If he was recognized, it would not be good. He was heading towards one of his spies' bases in IWA. He was prepared for anything. Naruto swung at Zensuke's midsection. Zensuke swung his blade outward, parrying Naruto's strike. He then blurred out of sight, reappearing above Naruto. Naruto lifted his blade above his head to block the downward swing, then pushed upward, forcing Zensuke away from him. Kenjutsu, chakra blade. Naruto swung his sword and a blue crescent of chakra flew out, and headed towards Zensuke. Zensuke positioned his sword in front of his chest and blocked the blade of chakra. He then smirked. "I have a move just like yours," Zensuke spoke. Naruto remained in his same expression. Kenjutsu, infinite pulse. Zensuke swung his blade and a crescent of yellow chakra escaped his blade, going straight for Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened, but he soon composed himself and countered. Kenjutsu, chakra blade. Naruto swung his blade, emitting a blue crescent of chakra. The attacks collided for a split second, and both were destroyed, meaning they were of near equal force. Naruto's eyes widened. "His is just as strong as mine. Got to end this," were his thoughts. Zensuke smirked, then blurred, appearing right beside Naruto on his left side. He swung his blade towards Naruto's feet. Naruto jumped and kicked out to Zensuke's head. Zensuke tilted his head backwards to dodge the attack. He then brought his blade forward to try and slice at the mid-air Naruto. Naruto moved his blade to his left side, effectively blocking Zensuke's blade. He then shifted his weight and spun in mid-air, pushing Zensuke's blade away in the process. He completed one spin and at the end, swung his blade at Zensuke. Zensuke brought his blade in front of him, blocking Naruto's strike and sending Naruto flying backwards from the force of the parry. Naruto flipped in mid-air and landed on his feet. "I would have thought you were stronger," Zensuke spoke. Naruto frowned, then smirked. "Have you not thought of the fact that perhaps I was holding back on you?" Naruto spoke. Zensuke frowned. "Well then, stop holding back, and we'll see who's stronger." Naruto smirked, all the while making a one-handed ram sign. "Kai," he yelled, then he blurred out of sight, his speed significantly increased. Jiraiya was in an old abandoned building. It was one of his trafficking spots. The spy lair was underground, but what was seen from the outside was just an abandoned building. There was nobody in the building at the time. It seemed like it hadn't been used in a while. Currently, he was in a large room under the building. It was this room where everything was kept. There was a washroom in another room and a bedroom. So he was in the equipment room. Though there was one thing wrong. There was no equipment, anywhere. The place looked as if it was cleaned out. Perhaps somebody had found out if his spies and killed them all. No, that was unlikely. He picked his spies because they were the best, but it was a possibility. Step 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 step. Jiraiya heard sounds of footsteps. Just as he turned around, a sword was plunged into his chest. Jiraiya's eyes widened as he took in what just happened. He looked at his attacker. There was a hooded figure, wearing a black cloak. His face was hidden among shadows, but Jiraiya was sure he could see red eyes with a black slit. "Those eyes, I've seen them before," Jiraiya thought as he remembered the disaster that led to the late 4th Hokage's death. In that moment, Jiraiya disappeared in a plume of smoke. The figure's visibly red eyes widened, as he looked around the room for Jiraiya. "Who are you?" The voice of Jiraiya came from every direction. "It seems I have failed," the hooded figure spoke as the lights in the room came on. Jiraiya was now visible at a corner of the room. "And just who have you failed?" Jiraiya spoke. "My master," the figure spoke yet again. Jiraiya then noticed something about the voice, it was feminine. "You're a woman," Jiraiya spoke. "I am a tool of my master," she spoke again. "Show your face," Jiraiya spoke. The figure turned to Jiraiya's direction, then began to remove her hood. As the hood was removed, the woman's facial features became visible to Jiraiya. Jiraiya's eyes widened. "RN. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX blurred out of sight, reappearing behind Zensuke. He reached out and punched Zensuke in the face, sending him flying. Zensuke's teammates continued to watch the battle with wide eyes. "Shouldn't you intervene? Don't you think it's going too far?" It was the female teammate, Rei, who spoke. Their Jounin sensei smirked. "No need, remember, Zensuke hasn't even showed his abilities yet." Rei nodded, then turned to Sanako. Sanako was watching the fight intensely. His fists were clenched and he grit his teeth. Rei looked at Sanako, then turned to the fight, her mind now on Sanako. He wants to defeat Zensuke. Watching Zensuke fight at such a high level must be hard for him, Sanako thought, then brought her attention back to the fight. Naruto appearing under Zensuke and kicked his jaw, sending him into the air. Then, a clone appeared right under Zensuke, kicking him once again in the jaw, sending him higher again. Then, another clone appearing and punched Zensuke under his jaw, sending Zensuke continuously upwards. Then, the original Naruto, who was on the ground, blurred out of sight, appearing right on top of Zensuke. Uzumaki barrage! Naruto yelled as he brought his foot down and delivered a ferocious axe kick to Zensuke's head, sending him flying at high speed towards the ground. The sound of the impact resounded throughout the training ground and dust rose, covering the field. Naruto landed on the ground. He knew that he hadn't gotten Zensuke. He knew that right before the final kick, Zensuke used a substitution. So right now, Naruto was extending his senses, attempting to find Zensuke. Suddenly, one of his clones dispelled. Naruto's eyes widened as the memories of his now disposed clone came back to him. In the memory, the clone's eye level descended rapidly as dust rose around the location. Then, another clone dispelled, then the last clone, all with a similar memory. Then, Naruto felt something grab his ankle. Earth style, head hanger jutsu. Naruto was brought underground at a rapid pace as dust rose around him. Crap, Naruto thought as he descended. The dust began to clear. What was visible after it cleared was Naruto's head sticking out of the ground, and Zensuke standing a few meters away, smirking. Both of his eyes were now visible. The eye that was previously covered by a band was purple with a slit in it. Zensuke walked toward Naruto, then spoke, "Let me tell you of my Dojutsu." He paused, looking at his teammates for a moment, then he continued, "It is called the Eye of Intent. It has a few abilities. I'll demonstrate the first 1 inch." As he spoke that, he closed his purple eye, then opened it in a flash. What followed was a force that knocked Naruto's head backwards, and the scariest part was that all it was killing intent. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX become a tool, Rin spoke. But nobody found you. You left the village, and. Jiraiya was cut off as Rin spoke. I was found and trained by my master. She spoke. And just who is your master? Jiraiya asked. Rin frowned, then blurred out of sight. Jiraiya jumped backwards as Rin appeared in front of him while doing a downward strike. His eyes widened as he landed. Rin disappeared yet again, appearing to the right of Jiraiya. She swung her blade at Jiraiya's head. Jiraiya ducked and delivered a punch to Rin's gut. Rin doubled over from the punch, but still managed to swing her blade outward. Jiraiya had to bend backwards to avoid the slash. He then jumped away and began to run through hand seals. Fire style, dragon flame bombs. He fired 3 compressed bullets of fire at Rin. Rin lifted her blade and swung at each bullet. Each of them disappeared as Rin swung. Jiraiya's eyes widened as he noted the wind chakra enveloped in her swings. Your element is water, so I guess it's not too surprising that you have some wind jutsu, Jiraiya spoke. Rin made no movement, then suddenly she blurred out of sight, reappearing above Jiraiya in mid-swing. She swung downward towards Jiraiya. Boom! Dust picked up and the ground was not clear, but what was clear was that there was now a huge crater where Jiraiya once stood. The force of the killing intent was so great, it was like nothing Naruto had ever felt. It was so powerful, that he himself dispelled. Zensuke's eyes widened, but then he moved to his left, dodging a strike from Naruto. He then brought his sword forward and attempted to slice at Naruto's head. Naruto ducked under the swing and thrust forward towards Zensuke's stomach. Zensuke blurred behind Naruto, then swung at his back. Naruto swung backwards while turning, parrying Zensuke's attempted strike. Zensuke then pivoted and attempted to kick Naruto with his left foot. Naruto brought his forearm up to block the kick. He then attempted his own kick with his right foot towards Zensuke's head. Zensuke reversed his grip on his sword so that it pointed towards Naruto's head. He then thrust it forward. Naruto's eyes widened and he blurred out of sight, not caring to complete his kick. Naruto snarled as he began to charge a Rasengan in his free hand. Zensuke's eyes widened, and then he spoke, "The next ability of my eye, is the ability of intent. I can read the intent of an opponent. It's like a danger sense." Naruto's eyes widened, "So you can read my attacks?" "No," Zensuke spoke, "the ability is not unlimited." He paused, then continued, "I can only sense when danger is coming. The ability only gives me a vague idea of where the danger is coming from, so I can't pinpoint your attacks." Naruto then spoke, "Why are you telling your enemies of your weakness?" "Simple, you're not strong enough to exploit them," Zensuke responded, then blurred out of sight. He appeared behind Naruto. He swung at Naruto's back. Naruto didn't move at all. Zensuke was surprised at this action, but took it as Naruto having slow reaction. That was until his Dojutsu flared. He stopped mid-swing and jumped away from Naruto. Naruto turned to Zensuke slowly. Naruto had changed somehow. He looked different. His eyes were yellow with a black horizontal iris. Also, he had orange eyeshadow around his eyes. Zensuke's eyes widened as he took in the new Naruto. "So, you also have a Dojutsu?" Naruto smirked, "Not at all." He then disappeared. No blur, no sign of movement, he literally just disappeared. Zensuke's Jounin sensei's eyes widened. She had seen something similar and knew exactly what was next. "Watch out," she yelled. Zensuke turned to look at his Jounin sensei for a moment, then his Dojutsu flared. It was a frontal attack. Zensuke was ready for it. He was ready for anything. A frontal attack? Does he really think he can dash? But his thoughts were cut off. Rasengan. Zensuke's eyes widened as it tore into his gut. He coughed up blood as the attack hit him. Naruto then released the Rasengan and Zensuke went flying backwards, the Rasengan still implanted in his gut. Zensuke continued to cough up blood as he flew backwards. He tore through many trees until gravity sent him to the ground. Impossible, Zensuke thought, was his attack that fast, that I couldn't see any sign of it? Those were his thoughts as he hit the ground hard. There were splinters in his back from all of the trees and his gut felt like hell. There was a spiral marking on his stomach indicated where the attack had hit. He felt extreme pain there, and the pain was overwhelming. Just before Zensuke was about to pass out, Naruto appeared in front of him. Naruto smirked, then spoke, "Who's top dog now?" Zensuke grit his teeth. "What is your name?" He managed to release those words through his hurried and weak breaths. "Uzumaki Naruto," he spoke, then turned away. Behind him were Rei, Sunako, and their female Jounin sensei. Their eyes were all on Naruto, then Rei turned her attention to Zensuke. "Zensuke," she yelled as she ran past Naruto to Zensuke. As she arrived, Zensuke smirked, "I'm fine. But I'll need a bit of help getting home." As he spoke this, he passed out. "Zensuke! Wake up!" Rei yelled. Sunako didn't seem angry though. He was perfectly composed as he looked at the person who defeated Zensuke. Zensuke was the #1 rookie in his year. The Jounin sensei spoke, that was spacetime ninjutsu. Naruto smirked, then nodded. I'm surprised you recognized it. After he spoke that, he turned to Ray. Relax, I didn't kill him. I held back on that attack. He'll need some medical attention though. Ray seemed to calm down a little, but tears were still coming out of her eyes, and there was still an underlying anger in her facial expression. Naruto then turned away and began to leave. I was never here. As he said that, he blurred out of sight. Sunako stared at the location that Naruto had just disappeared. His Jounin sensei addressed him then. He was strong. Don't feel too bad. If her could beat Zensuke, then you would have stood no chance, but that doesn't mean he'll always be ahead. You can become stronger, she spoke. Sunako looked at his sensei, then nodded and proceeded to walk towards Zensuke and Ray. He knelt down and spoke to Ray. Come on, let's take him to the hospital. Ray nodded and they lifted up Zensuke. Their Jounin sensei smiled at the show of camaraderie. Kira sensei, which village was he from? Ray asked. The Jounin sensei, now identified as Kira, spoke. It has to be Konoha. That jutsu he used, the Rasengan, was one that the fourth Hokage created. Only a ninja from Konoha would know that jutsu. Ray and Sunako both nodded at the information. Now if that's it, we better get Zensuke to a hospital, she spoke, and both her students nodded. They hurried out of the training grounds and headed towards the hospital. Jiraiya ducked under a slice from Rin, then blurred behind her. He elbowed her in the back of the head, and she promptly turned into smoke. Shadow clone. Jiraiya thought as he repositioned his guard. Jiraiya, the voice came from behind him. Jiraiya turned around to see Rin standing and staring at him. She was merely there, nothing more. Rin, what is going on? Jiraiya asked. Destiny, Rin replied. You being here means you are also part of my destiny. Jiraiya had enough of this. Why are you here? You being here puts a hinge in my master's plan. I have been given the sole job of eliminating you, so you do not interfere. She answered. Interfere? What are you talking about, Rin? Jiraiya asked yet again. Enough of this talk, sensei, one of us will die here. If it is you, then I've done my job, but if it is me that dies by your hand, it would mean I was a useless tool. As Rin spoke, she blurred out of sight. Earth style, earth wall. A wall of earth rose in front of Jiraiya as Rin appeared in front of him. Rin slashed her blade at the wall, and it promptly broke into pieces. Jiraiya's eyes widened as he jumped backwards. While he was in mid-air, he started running through more seals. Rin blurred out of sight at this time. Jiraiya finished his seals. Ninja art, frog mouth trap. The ground and walls and ceiling began to become engrossed in a strange substance. It was a horrid reddish shade. It seemed the color and texture of a tongue. As Jiraiya finished his jutsu, Rin appeared behind him, swinging her blade. As she swung, Jiraiya had already finished another set of hand seals. Ninja art, porcupine barrier. As he spoke this, his hair seemed to expand at an incredible pace. It then seemed to widen and sharpen. As Rin finished her swing, she could only widen her eyes as the speed of her slash was substantially diminished once she made contact with Jiraiya's hair. His hair was as hard as steel. Rin then used her momentum to launch away from Jiraiya. While in midair, she turned to Jiraiya and swung her blade horizontally towards him. Kenjutsu, Hell's Crescent. She then swung and a blood-red crescent of chakra escaped her blade and traveled towards Jiraiya at an incredibly high speed. Jiraiya's eyes widened as he recognized the type of move that Rin had launched at him. He escaped his stupor and turned his right palm up. A blue sphere of chakra began to gather in Jiraiya's hand. He only had enough time to create a Rasengan that was the size of a soccer ball, but that was more than enough. As the blade of red chakra came close, he pushed his Rasengan forward, right into Rin's jutsu. Rasengan. An explosion occurred and Jiraiya and Rin were out of sight. Dust and debris filled the battlefield as the two warriors were nowhere to be found. Naruto was rushing to where he felt a fluctuation in chakra. It was at a very high level, one that only just exceeded Jiraiya's. If a fight had happened, then Jiraiya would be in trouble. So currently, Naruto was rushing towards the scene, but he had to be stopped. Shuriken flew at Naruto from every direction. There was absolutely no way Naruto could dodge them. Disappear. Naruto spoke it softly, then he disappeared from sight. He literally just ceased to exist. The shuriken hit each other with a clang and landed harmlessly on the ground. Naruto was now kneeling on a nearby roof. He was panting and sweating. Damn, this is the second time I've used that jutsu this day. I will only be able to do it twice more, and that's pushing it, were his thoughts, but then he got back to the task at hand. Come out, he spoke. His voice emitted confidence that would not normally be found in a 12-year-old child. Uzumaki. Naruto, the voice was behind him. Naruto turned to see a hooded figure. Who are you? Naruto asked, his hand was already reaching for his sword's hilt. I am experiment number 6, but you can call me Zack. The hooded figure, now identified as Zack, spoke. I'd like to see you face, Naruto spoke. Zack looked at Naruto, then began to remove his hood. Black spiky hair became visible. On his left cheek was a bandage, and right below his right eye going down to his right cheek was a very visible scar. His face was incredibly handsome and he had a sharp jaw. A huge sword was fashioned on his back. It was eerily similar to the one of Zabuza's, except the hilt had bandages all around. His eyes were an unnatural black as they bore into Naruto. Naruto met Zack's gaze with a gaze of his own. His own eyes were like Zack's, the only difference being that Zack's eyes were devoid of all humanity, while a hint of humanity was still visible in Naruto's eyes. Though in both Zack and Naruto's eyes, there was an unnatural coldness to them. Why have you attacked me? Naruto asked, hand on the hilt of his blade. Simple, I can't let you interfere with Master's plans. Zack responded. Master? Who is this Master? Naruto asked as he furrowed his eyebrows. Zack smirked, then blurred out of sight. Naruto quickly positioned his blade in front of him, horizontally. Clash! A crater formed under Naruto from the pressure of the strike. The huge sword was pressed up against Naruto's blade and the two swordsmen were in a stalemate. You will not interfere, Uzumaki, Zack spoke, and as he said this, his blade started to glow blood red. Naruto's eyes widened as he sensed the attack that was coming. Boom! Rin was amidst the dust and debris, currently looking for the presence of the Toad Sannin. He concealed himself well, using the dust cloud to break the line of sight, but also something more. Jiraiya was manipulating the excess chakra that was lingering in the air to hide his chakra signature, all the while concealing the very action. Normally, the action should have given Rin an easier time of finding Jiraiya, but there was a reason he was called a Sannin. Rin gripped her sword tight, looking for the Sannin, but as her instinct kicked in, she ducked. Jiraiya sailed over her head, a large Rasengan spiraling in his hand. Rin's eyes widened, then she came back to her senses and realized that at this point, Jiraiya was right on top of her, and he was incredibly open. Rin thrusted her sword upward into the mid-air. Jiraiya. The sword penetrated his stomach and came out of his back. Jiraiya coughed up blood as the sword went through him. Jiraiya's straight form hunched as the life in him began to drain away. Rin flung Jiraiya off her blade and he landed a few meters away in a heap. Rin had killed Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin. As Rin stared at the motionless Sannin, there was no change in her facial features. There was no happiness, no confidence, no sadness, there was absolutely no emotion as she stared at the downed opponent. But what Rin hadn't noticed was that her feet were now stuck. Jiraiya's jutsu had yet to wear off. Then she spoke, it had to be done, Jiraiya-sensei. As she said this she began to take out a scroll in which she would seal her sword, but she didn't get the chance. Rasengan, the voice came from underneath her. She looked down and her eyes widened as a hand erupted from the earth, followed by a head with a lot of silver hair. Rin tried to dodge but she was caught off guard, she was stuck, and the attack was just too fast. Arg! Rin's yell was muffled by the pain she felt in her abdomen as the Rasengan tore into her. Jiraiya, now fully emerged from the ground, pushed upward, forcing Rin off the ground. He then released the Rasengan and watched as Rin flew backwards, the spinning ball of chakra still embedded in her gut. Rin spiraled upward and she hit the ceiling hard. She was forcefully pushed against the ceiling. Cracks became visible where she was positioned, and just as it seemed the ceiling would cave under the pressure, the Rasengan began to fade away. As the Rasengan completely disappeared, Rin plummeted back towards ground, and impacted hard. Crunching sounds were heard on impact, signaling the many broken bones she most likely now sported. Jiraiya stood with his hands still outward, panting. It had taken some patience, but it seemed he had come out the victor. That was until Jiraiya's eyes went wide yet again at an unbelievable sight. That's not possible. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX disappear once again. Needless to say, Naruto was now exhausted. A total of 3 times he had already used that jutsu. It was incredibly mentally and physically draining. The most he was able to do in one day, without using any chakra for other activities, was 5 times. But after the 5th, he immediately passed out. He had one more good go at the jutsu before he would have to retreat. Using an evasive jutsu and then passing out wouldn't be a good strategy in the long run. Naruto kneeled on the roof, looking for Zack. He had disappeared after the explosion, and Naruto couldn't find him. Something truly unnerved Naruto, and it was part of the reason why he couldn't use his sage senses to detect Zack. On his way from battling Zensuke, Naruto had noticed the change in the sky's color. It was becoming an unearthly red shade. It was just a little bit redder, to the point that you wouldn't notice unless you were looking out for it. Also, dark clouds had begun to roll in, and lastly, there was way too much latent chakra in the air. It wasn't so much that it was suffocating, but it was noticeably larger. He truly didn't like it. That was why he couldn't use Sage Mode. Sage Mode relied on gathering chakra from nature and from elements around you. If you can achieve a perfect balance of natural chakra in your system, then you can enter Sage Mode. Though the key word is natural. The extra chakra that was laced in the air was anything but natural. And Naruto had a feeling that the type of chakra it was, he would be the only one to truly recognize. Naruto grit his teeth and fed his blade with chakra. A blue outline coated the blade, making it infinitely sharper. "Come out," Naruto spoke in a conversational tone, though he was sure that Zack had heard him. "Behind you." Naruto heard the Kyuubi's voice echo in his head, and he had just enough time to swing his blade behind him to parry the incoming strike. As Zack's attack was parried, he thrust again, this time with more force than before. The attack came onto Naruto's blade, and a crater formed under Naruto as he blocked the strike. Naruto then blurred out of sight, appearing behind Zack. Naruto swung his blade at Zack's chest. Zack swung outward to parry Naruto's strike, then Zack jumped up and over Naruto. Naruto charged up chakra in his blade. Kenjutsu, chakra blade. Naruto swung his blade and a blue crescent of chakra was emitted. Zack landed and charged up his own attack. Kenjutsu, Hell's Crescent. As he said this, he swung his own blade. It emitted a blood-red blade of chakra, much like his previous attack. The attack collided in mid-air and Naruto's attack was quickly overpowered. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw Zack's attack continue on its path. Naruto grit his teeth and with his free hand, formed his sensei's favorite jutsu. Rasengan. As he yelled this, the blue spiraling ball of chakra that he had created smashed into the blade of red chakra. The attack collided, with Naruto's Rasengan overpowering Zack's own jutsu. Then, Naruto swung his blade again. Kenjutsu, chakra blade. This time though, Naruto added over twice the amount of chakra, amounting to a much larger and stronger attack. Zack smirked, then blurred out of sight. Naruto spun to his left to avoid a downward strike from Zack. His sword hit the ground with a thud and Naruto used this opportunity to speed forward. Rasengan. As he yelled this, he thrust the Rasengan into Zack's gut. The attack connected, and the Rasengan tore into Zack's body. Ahhghaa, Zack's yelled were muffled by pain as he was sent spiraling backwards, his sword still embedded into the ground as he flew away from it. Not done yet, Naruto whispered quietly as red lightning began to course in his left hand and down to his wrist. Raging lightning blade dragon, Naruto spoke this, though his voice had seemed to have changed. It sounded a lot more demonic. Naruto's eyes changed color in a flash. No more were they a brilliant shade of azure, now they were dark red, with a black slit. Also, the whisker marks on his cheeks began to thicken, and darken. Naruto blurred out of sight and appeared right in front of Zack, who was still flying backwards from the force of the Rasengan. He propelled his lightning-infused hand forward into Zack's chest. Zack's eyes went wider and more blood escaped his mouth as the new pain came to light, but Naruto wasn't done yet. Using his lightning-emitting hand, Naruto lifted Zack into the air, all the while still going forward at full speed. He then began to go vertically up, a trail of lightning followed. Naruto and Zack flew upward, with Naruto's hand of lightning still in Zack's chest. They kept going skyward. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX The sky had started becoming darker, and at this point, it wasn't very hard to notice that it was becoming red also. Dark clouds had begun to roll in and the first droplets of rain could be felt. Iwa was becoming very dark, and many civilians began to head back to their homes as the phenomenon which was the weather began to get worse as winds picked up. Though barely anyone noticed a small red light in the sky which continued upward as they reached a summit of the clouds. Naruto blurred out of sight for a split second, then appeared on top of Zack. "This is the end," Naruto yelled in a voice that truly did not belong to him. It was much too dark, much too sinister. Naruto's then spread out his palm and in a flurry of lights, the lightning in Naruto's hand expanded to a great size. And it also took the form of a dragon. "It's over!" Naruto yelled as the gigantic dragon, which now coursed down his entire left arm and past him, opened its mighty jaws. All that was seen from the ground was a great many lights above the clouds. The lights were red, and many people knew that it wasn't right. The Tsuchikage was in his office. "Tsuchikage-sama. There are sightings of red lights in the sky," a messenger yelled as he stormed into the Tsuchikage's office. "What? Who reported this sighting?" the Tsuchikage asked in a voice that seemed old, but agitated. "Numerous villagers, sir. I believe you should look for yourself," the messenger yelled. The Tsuchikage grumbled something, but that wasn't heard. He got out of his chair and walked toward the window behind him. What he saw was amazing. "What is that?" Red lightning lingered on Rin's abdomen as it healed itself. It was chakra, and it was deadly. How? How is that possible? Jiraiya yelled. He was sure that his Rasengan had made contact and he was sure that Rin wouldn't survive the attack, but here was Rin, a mysterious chakra healing her at such a rapid pace that it was scary. "My master has given me this gift. He gave it to me so I could kill you," Rin spoke in a tone which held no emotion at whatsoever. "What kind of gift?" Jiraiya yelled. "A gift, a special gift. Only special tools are awarded special gifts. And I am a special tool to my master," Rin spoke. "Cut the crap, Rin." Jiraiya had calmed down a reasonable amount. "How are you healing so fast? You're healing at even a pace that Naruto would find him as Then it hit Jiraiya. "Demonic chakra," Jiraiya spoke in a deep voice to himself, but Rin still heard him. Rin smiled a smile that did not belong to her. It was a devilish smile. "Are you calling me a demon, Jiraiya-sensei? A monster from a child's dreams?" Rin yelled the last part. Jiraiya grit his teeth. "You're not the Rin I used to know, and since you won't kindly let me leave, I'll have to beat the old Rin out of you." At this, Jiraiya got into stance and began running through hand seals, but he was cut off as the ground began to tremble. Then in a great burst, Jiraiya's mind was knocked out and the last thing he saw was white light. Naruto's jutsu faded away before he could give the final thrust. His eyes widened as he saw his jutsu disappear. It was impossible. How could his own jutsu just disappear as it did? But Naruto's questions were answered as he was knocked away from Zack by some invisible force. The air left Naruto's lungs as he coughed up blood. He skyrocketed towards the ground. As he looked up, he was able to see a gigantic wave of red chakra fly outward in waves. It came once, then again, and it kept coming. Each wave sent Naruto's head into a panic, and he continued to skyrocket towards the ground. His mind began to go blank, and the last thing he remembered was white light. What the Tsuchikage beholded was a wave of red chakra coming right towards him. The Tsuchikage's eyes widened even more as he began to run through hand seals. Earth style, mighty earth wall. As he said this, a wall of earth rose in front of the Tsuchikage tower. The Tsuchikage smirked at his job well done. That was until the wall crumbled. His eyes widened as the wave of chakra continued on its course, and as it hit, the ground shook. Lights went off in the building and he could feel an incredible mass of killing intent. His head also began to hurt really badly. As the Tsuchikage fell, he could hear the screams of people around him. But he had no more thought of it as he saw a bright light. Then his mind went blank. It was madness. It was dark all around. It seemed as if the world had gone to Armageddon. His mind ached and he felt like puking. All around him, the world was spinning. The sky was a dark shade of red and the clouds were an unkindly dark shade of gray. As Naruto struggled to stand up, he found that he was incredibly weak. It felt like all of his chakra had been drained. Then, Naruto began to try and survey his surroundings. All around him, houses had been destroyed. Only some remained, but he noticed that he couldn't see too far out. It seemed as if the land went skyward. Naruto's eyes widened as he frantically looked downward and forward. The ground descended, he noted. He figured it out, he was inside a giant crater. He looked around for anyone. He saw countless bodies around the crater. He crawled towards one of them. It was a man. He wore a black bandana and a headband on his neck. He didn't seem like much. Naruto looked in apathy as he put his hand on the man's neck and found no pulse. Naruto's brow furrowed as he looked around him. He could tell that not all the bodies lying here were of the dead. A lot of them were alive, but barely. Naruto looked back at the man that he had felt no pulse from. He managed to see a glimpse of himself in the man's eyes. His own eyes were a feral red with a black slit. His eyes widened as he recognized the sign of the Kyuubi's chakra coursing through his system. As he noted this, he tried to stand again. It was still tough, but he was finally able to stand on 2 feet. Naruto looked around the crater to look for someone who was conscious, then his eyes traveled to the center of the crater where there was a hooded figure. Naruto's heart actually skipped a beat as he saw the figure's head turn towards him. A veil of shadows covered his face from all who seek to know his identity. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX building had collapsed and he was trapped under. He had a few broken bones, but other than that, he was pretty lucky. Jiraiya couldn't detect Rin's presence anymore. But he could sense the insane amount of latent chakra in the air. It was suffocating, and the very essence of the chakra caused Jiraiya to almost puke. The chakra in the air also gave Jiraiya slight memories of a certain incident 11 years ago in Konoha, an incident he would never forget, the incident that resulted in the death of his student. Jiraiya stood amidst the rubble as he surveyed his surroundings. To his left, the buildings and houses were barely scathed, though the atmosphere around still appeared as if it was hell. To his right, everything was gone. And strangely, it seemed like everything just disappeared at a certain distance. That was the direction Jiraiya decided to go. He began to walk and walk until he reached the area where he found his sight disappeared. What he found shocked him, and he finally realized that the whole time, he had been on the edge of a crater. The hooded figure began to walk towards Naruto, his footsteps graceful in a melodic fashion, but also in a way that was powerful beyond recognition, and also evil. If Naruto didn't know better, he would have thought he was looking at the devil reincarnate. Then he realized that he himself was the only devil around. At this thought, he smirked, but his smirk soon faded as he realized that his sword was not with him. He frowned, and quickly pulled out a scroll. His arm pained him as he attempted to release the contents of the scroll. In fact, his whole body ached. The figure continued walking towards Naruto, never quickening its pace. Naruto nipped his finger and grazed it across the scroll. A poof of smoke was created and out popped a blade much like Naruto's old one, but the craftsmanship was of a much lower quality, but still it was above average. Naruto returned the scroll to his pocket and gripped the sword. The figure didn't seem unnerved in the slightest, and continued without a flinch. Then, the figure disappeared. The next thing Naruto knew, he was lifted off the ground, a large gauntlet clasped around his neck. Arg! Naruto's sounds were muffled before they could escape his throat as the figure's grip on Naruto's neck tightened. Who? Arg! Naruto couldn't complete his sentence as he felt the figure's grip grow tighter still. You are the Kyuubi no Kitsune, am I correct? The voice was deep, and altered. What if? Am? Naruto managed to let the words escape his mouth. I hadn't planned for you being here, using you would have made this a lot easier, the voice spoke, then threw Naruto away from him. Naruto flew at an incredible speed away from the figure and hit the ground hard. More snaps could be heard as more bones broke. I will not kill you now, Kyuubi no Kitsune, but do not interfere with my plans, for I am quite willing to inflict damage upon you. All I need is the Kyuubi's chakra. I don't mind if you lost your legs or arms, they are useless to me. The hooded figure spoke, then turned away from Naruto. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto lay in his mindscape. The water in the sewer-like chamber was up to thigh level, and Naruto was floating on it. His head looked straight up to the sky. Use it now, boy. The demonic gate must be opened. Naruto turned his head to look at the Kyuubi. His own eyes, much like the eyes of the Kyuubi, were now red with a black slit. I'm guessing you're the only reason I survived that? Naruto asked. The chakra coursing through your system, even now, is not your own, but my chakra in your system for extended periods of time can result in unpleasant side effects. The Kyuubi spoke. I know your chakra is like poison, and it can affect my internal organs to a level, am I correct? Naruto asked. The Kyuubi did not reply. Instead, the demon spoke of something else. You must kill this man. He is strong, and the power you will gain from the demonic gate will be the only power strong enough to defeat him, the Kyuubi spoke. Naruto laughed. It sounds like you know him. He was there, was all that the Kyuubi said. Naruto sighed, then spoke. How do I open the demonic gate? Even behind the bars of the seal, one could tell that the Kyuubi no Kitsune was grinning mightily. As Jiraiya descended further into the crater, the ground began to rumble once more. The clouds again began to move, but they instead moved in a circular path around a location. They seemed to be revolving around the center of the crater. Jiraiya stumbled over a body as the ground shook. As he stood up, he looked at what he tripped over and saw a child. She was young, probably only around 8 years old, and Jiraiya could tell that she was dead. A teardrop escaped Jiraiya's eye, but then his face was filled with anger. He turned back toward the center of the crater and realized that waves of red chakra were being emitted from the center. This chakra was on a level that rivaled the previous wave of red chakra that disorientated him from before. But Jiraiya could tell that this wasn't just demonic chakra, it was the exact same chakra he felt the night of October 10th, the night the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked the village hidden in the leaves. And as Jiraiya looked to the center, he saw a pillar of red chakra travel towards the sky. The clouds revolved around the pillar of chakra, and it just stayed there. For a moment all seemed still, that was until all the chakra in the pillar came rushing outward in one mighty burst. A bright light. That was the last thing that Naruto remembered. He saw the sinister grin of the Kyuubi, then next came a door. The door had two large skulls for handles and it was made of wood. The gate appeared at the base of the cage which contained the Kyuubi. As Naruto walked forward he reached out to the handle, and pulled. The next thing Naruto saw was a flash of red, and a bright light. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Foxsage, and I'm signing off.